Okay, here we are at podcastaddict.com, where Overcast was an iOS app only. Podcast Addict is an Android app only. Does it matter if you're advertising to iOS or Android only people? Probably not, but I would think that maybe stereotypes prevailing, that Android folks are probably more into business and technology, maybe, and iOS people are maybe more interested in news and current events and fiction, maybe. But those are prejudices. I don't know if that's actually true. I don't think there's any data on that. I think if you're going to advertise, whether you choose an iOS app or an Android app to run your ad in, I think you have to run the ads to figure out for which audience it works better. There are going to be differences between the performance of ads that run on platform A and ads that run on platform B, and it's really because each one of those apps, Podcast Addict versus Overcast, which we went over in the previous video, they themselves are going to have different users gravitate to use them. So you may find that a fiction podcast performs better on Overcast than it does on Podcast Addict or any of the other ones we'll go over this week. But you may also find that a romance podcast or a celebrity rewatch podcast performs better on vice versa. So it really depends, and you have to experiment and run ads in order to figure that out. You're not just going to walk into advertising with that information. You got to be willing to lose a little bit of performance in order to learn those lessons. So here's Podcast Addict. We're going to click on ads. We're going to get a stupid ad here because they're running ads on their own site, of course. And here we go. Promote your podcast. Podcast Addict allows you to promote your podcast via paid advertisement. There are two different ad placements available. The first is on the main screen that allows users to search for a new podcast. So this is the home screen. And the second is within a specific category when the user browses podcast by category. So in the first case, it appears like this, a big banner at the top. And in the latter case, in addition to the main ad display, Podcast Addict being ad-supported, the app will also use its own ad banner to promote podcasts when there's no inventory provided by Google or AdMob. So sometimes the ad down here at the bottom of the app will be an ad for a website. But when they don't have a website to advertise there, they might put your podcast there. So it's going to appear up top like this in a category or on the front page or sometimes in this space. Now, how do we run the ad? Well, similar to what we did before in Overcast where we selected our podcast from a list, but instead in this case we're going to need our RSS feed. So I'm going to select an RSS feed that's saved here and I'm going to hit Submit. And we can see that it's again the Dictionary of Mythology and Folklore, and counter to Overcast, it's not going to let me choose what category to put it in. It's going to tell me what category I can put it in based on what category the podcast is, because it wants your ad to perform as well as possible, so it's going to put it in the relevant category. It's not going to let you mess that up. So you can see I have two separate prices here. I would have four. The first is all, as in it appears on the main screen and is not specific to any category. This is sold out. So I don't even know what the price of that would be. It's probably over $1,000, I'm sure. And then I have the arts category, which is the parent category of where this podcast is listed. So I would say $250 or arts $200, the difference being that this is to run in October, which we are just about to be in. We're halfway through September now. And the next is November. You can see that the further out you can order as far as 2 months ahead, you get a little bit of a price break if you're willing to wait. So I'll click on 200 because I like a price break. Who doesn't like that? And you can see that there are, again, some suggestions here. You'll get 1,500 to 2,000 clicks. You'll get 25 to 95 subscriptions. Now you'll check to say you accept the terms of service and terms of sale, and you'll hit pay. And you'll get another payment screen, not unlike the one we saw before with Overcast, and you'll pay to run this ad. And then within 24 to 48 hours, the ad will begin running. I'm not going to run this ad for the same reason I didn't run the last one. And we're going to go look at some of the ads I have from the past. In order to do so, I'm going to have to jump into an old mailbox and find the link, because they don't have a dashboard the same way that you have a dashboard. Instead, they have a special tracking link. So I'm going to search for Podcast Addict, and I'm going to look for my tracking link. Podcast Addict receipt ad campaign tracking URL. So after you make the purchase, they'll send you this link. You'll add it to your favorites, so you don't have to do that every time. And you'll be able to monitor the performance of your ad campaign as it runs. Now, let's see math-wise what this cost me. Remember, the last one I was getting about $1.92 or $1.91. So I'm going to open up the calculator again. Actually, there's probably no need to do that. I can just launch the calculator app on my damn computer. Forgot I had one of those. And let's see what we did. Well, we got 866 clicks. I'm sorry, that's not right. We paid $200. That's what I'm doing. We paid $200 for the ad. I'm going to divide that by 73, which is the number of subscriptions we ultimately got. And I paid $2.74, rounding up, for each new listener. Ugh. That's not as good as Overcast. Now, what is the reason it's not as good? Remember I said before that different platforms can perform differently. This might be because it's a Android-only app, or it might be that the general user base of Podcast Addict is less likely to listen to this sort of podcast. Or it could be that while my copy performed pretty well on Overcast, the copy just doesn't perform as well here because, again, maybe the user base is different. I mean, the name of this app is Podcast Addict. Some people wouldn't use that app just because the word addict is in it and it's making light of addiction. Some people might view it that way. And so it might be true that the audience that does use this app doesn't care about that sort of thing and may be a little less progressive in their moral values, right? Maybe they're not bothered by this. This isn't a judgment. This is just me opining. And so maybe people who are less bothered by the use of the word addict in a kind of dismissive way will not be interested in podcasts about fantasy and mythology and folklore and fake things. Maybe they're not interested in that. Maybe this is a more stoic crowd that's more interested in the news and current events and facts, things like that. And maybe on Overcast, it's more people who are interested in artsy stuff. Who knows? That's a reason I just completely made up and I have no information or data on. But that could be the reason. But you don't know. You have to try. I know that I would never run a second ad on Podcast Addict for this show because it cost me double to get half as many subscribers as I did on Overcast. Will that be the same for you? You have to test it to find out. And, testing sometimes feels like spending money, which nobody likes doing, because when the test doesn't go well, it feels like wasting money, which really nobody likes doing. But you have to do it to figure it out. So that is Podcast Addict. Pretty straightforward. And in the next video, we'll go over another platform. That's up next.